To be a good consultant, it means you have to thrive in chaos. You have to thrive with having multiple people that you're serving, right? So each of our CFOs and controllers and senior accountants and so forth are working with usually between 4 and 7 different clients. And so they've got deliverables and expectations with each of those clients. So to hire right, we are hiring people who aren't just good at their jobs, but they're incredibly good communicators. They're good at setting expectations, and they're good at under promising and over delivering. They need to be very clear about setting expectations on deliverables and meeting the expectations of what they signed up for.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we talk about why hiring is so critical for your business. When you think about hiring people, when you think about the people that are you're asking to join you on the journey, do you have a good process? Do you have a solid way to really create the kind of hiring process you want? Well, why hiring right is everything is today's topic with the founder of Ascent CFO Solutions. They are on the Inc. list. They've got 40 employees, and they're a professional service company doing CFO partial and interim services. When I say that, I want you to think about really smart, talented people that if you hire wrong, it's really going to be detrimental to the business. Now, your business may not be quite as critical as that, but I would bet that there's many roles within your business that if you hire wrong, it's going to have a very negative effect on the business and the culture in general. Not just performance, not just profitability, but it's just it really impacts everything. So why hiring right is everything is today's conversation. What you're going to find inside here is the process at which Dan goes to hire. We're going to talk to Dan DeGolier is really someone I respect and what they've done. And so I'm really excited to share this interview with you. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm a CEO coach. We do executive coaching and leadership development inside companies that are on growth mode. We know that there's a certain amount of chaos that comes in. There's a certain amount of things shifting really fast. A stronger foundation for leadership is a critical component as any company grows. You go through different shifts in identity, and it's really important to understand what those shifts are and to be ahead of them as you continue to grow your own skills of leadership, but your own mindset and awareness of that. If you're curious about the work we do, your next step would be to go to a free training we host every week. It's training.coreelevation.com. Inside there, we will talk about how you can stop being the bottleneck of the business, get out of the day-to-day, create a business that grows without you so that you can go on the longer vacations, so you can move to that chairman role eventually in your business. I'm not telling you to get you out of the business, but in that training, we're going to unpack the key foundational elements that our clients have gone through and will help you understand what's next for yourself. Just go to training.coreelevation.com to sign up today. Now, here's the interview with Dan. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Gene. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. We're going to have a great interview. Why hiring right is everything. Before we dive into that, tell us about your company, Ascent CFO Solutions.
So Ascent CFO is a fractional CFO firm. We're headquartered in Boulder and Denver, Colorado. We help companies with growth. We help high growth companies with putting in place process and systems and cash flow forecasting and financial modeling and KPI dashboards, things like that, to give them visibility into their business and to help them strategically with their growth, whether it's fundraising or exit planning or debt financing, or again, process improvement, sales, compensation strategy, all kinds of across all the areas that you would expect from a really qualified CFO. We do on a part-time basis.
I love all this. I love numbers. I love money. And I think that what you guys do probably is very needed because I don't think most businesses below 20 million don't need a full-time CFO. So how'd you get into this area?
Yeah, great question. I had taken a full-time CFO role with a company, a software company that was raising its first round of venture capital. And as soon as I joined, I realized they really couldn't afford a full-time CFO, nor did they need a full-time person in that role. But they needed the skill set I was good at. They needed somebody to improve their reporting, help them with the fundraise, help them with KPI tracking, all kinds of things like that. But it really wasn't a full-time role, and like I said, couldn't necessarily afford a full-time salary. So that was kind of my light bulb moment that it would be interesting if I could work for multiple companies as a CFO and kind of spread my cost around. And so I did that for several years on my own, and then realized I could scale this. I could turn this into a viable long-term business, and give other really qualified people jobs across the spectrums from CFO down to accountant.
I have so many questions I have here because I work with fast growth companies and I feel like I'm beating this drum on KPIs and dashboards and things like that. And they're like, well, we get by with what we have. But I'm like, you track one number and it's
Yeah.
only one aspect of the business. And maybe it is a very important number, but there's five or seven other areas. How do you get your employees, your companies that you work with to really look at the KPIs and lead and manage their companies using those KPIs?
I mean, one question we ask is whether or not what they lose sleep over, and if they're sweating a payroll, which a lot of founders have done. We point out to them that we can pretty accurately track their future cash flows by understanding all of the data around their historicals, and look at their pipeline, look across their expected spend across areas of payroll, et cetera, and help them get strong visibility into that going forward. I mean, you still come across founders who kind of track their success through what their bank account balance is, but that can blow up pretty quickly if they don't collect their AR on time, or they're paying their AP too quickly, or they're hiring too quickly ahead of their growth curve. There's a lot of different factors there are that influence what their cash flow looks like, and what restrains their growth as well.
I am fascinated by this, but we came here to talk about another aspect of your own business. And I think a lot of people can relate to this because I'm just imagining in order for you to hire right people, they need to have some experience. You're not bringing in completely new people into the world of fractional CFOs. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct. Yep. Yep.
So they're talented people. They're probably very expensive. They probably have their own, kind of ways to do things. But for you to scale your business, you've had to hire right. So walk us through what we're at the starting point of hiring right for your business.
Sure. Sure. I mean, we've all learned lessons. I've certainly learned my lessons on what makes a good fractional CFO or accounting person. And it's not just the technical skills, right? It's not just, okay, they've raised capital, they've helped companies exit. They're, on the controller side, that they're good at closing the books and preparing analyses and things like that. It's also that they're really, to be a good consultant, it means you have to thrive in chaos. You have to thrive with having multiple people that you're serving, right? So each of our CFOs and controllers and senior accountants and so forth are working with usually between 4 and 7 different clients. And so they've got deliverables and expectations with each of those clients. So to hire right, we are hiring people who aren't just good at their jobs, but they're incredibly good communicators. They're good at setting expectations, and they're good at under promising and over delivering. They need to be very clear about setting expectations on deliverables, and meeting the expectations of what they signed up for. And so we ask a lot of questions. We do a lot of diligence on a candidate before they join, to really understand, is that an area they're going to thrive? Because it's not for everybody. There's plenty of people who are a great CFO or a great controller, but they're not. But they prefer the solid nature or consistent nature of going, quote unquote, to the same office, or at least working with the same people on a day-to-day basis, and kind of having one job. And that's great. That's great for lots of people. That's not necessarily going to suit them well in a consulting role like they would have at Ascent CFO.
I've worked with a lot of companies just like you have, and I think a lot of CEOs are really terrible at hiring.
Hmm.
One part of that is they have this optimism for they can turn someone around, or they feel like they've got some spark, or they got some experience. But when you talk to them after the fact, they're like, oh, I missed these three things because I just didn't even ask. Did you have to learn
Right.
how to hire people?
Absolutely. And I've also learned that there's people who are better at it than I am. So I've got a really talented recruiter on my team who has a lot of experience in financing, accounting, recruiting. And so, I work really closely with her as she identifies candidates. She asks all the right questions, and then we run them through a couple other people, including myself, before we hire them. We check references extensively, but we've kind of learned the hard way that not everybody is going to be a good fit for what we're doing. So we've got to ask those hard questions.
Is there anything you do to test the technical skills of your people? Because I feel like they should come in with a base knowledge of a lot of the technical financial cash flows and whatnot. Do you do anything to test them ahead of time?
More so on the accounting side, so controllers, accounting managers, senior accountants, financial analysts. We have them take a couple different tests. One is an accounting test to see, if they have a CPA certificate already, their chances are pretty good that they're going to do really well on it. But plenty of really qualified accountants did not opt to take the CPA exam and get their certificate. And so, especially with those, it's great to have them take a pretty thorough accounting test and then an Excel test. Excel is still thriving along with Google Sheets, and having somebody who's really skilled in using Excel is important for those levels. On the CFO side, less so though. As far as tests, it's more along the lines of really going deep with the references and going deep with their experience and understanding their career progression, and like I've said before, things around their fundraising experience and their exit experience, whether it's buy side or sell side M&A. We really like to understand what they've done in a strategic role for the various companies they work for. A lot of them haven't been consultants before. A lot of them have been, the CFO of companies on a one-off basis. So, or, a more standard CFO role working for one company. So we want to understand all of their experience and how that's going to convert to being a really qualified fractional CFO.
Now, I asked Dan about testing skills. I would encourage each of you to think about the critical roles for your company and be able to understand those roles so well that you can identify the skills that need to be tested ahead of time. And I say this because a lot of people will come back and say, we're having a tough enough time getting people just to apply if we put this test in place. Well, this is the table stakes, if you will, of hiring someone, making sure that they have the functional skills. Unless you are bringing in people completely out of college or completely with no training whatsoever, and you have those systems in place, which most people don't, you want to make sure that they have some of the basic foundational skills for that role. We find that when you do this ahead of time and you make it a little bit harder, they have to jump through a few hoops, you actually will get better people, because those that have those right skills for it will actually be better candidates and be better employees and stick around longer. Well, that's my take on it. Love to share more information. If you need more information about that, just send me an email, gene@genehammett.com, and I can share with you some case studies and some details behind what we've done for clients in this particular area. And we'll give it to you all for free. Just send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. Now back to Dan. And you may not want to let the cat out of the bag here, but do you have a favorite interview question for your team?
One of my favorites, I'm not sure it's my absolute favorite, but I like to ask people what their superpower is. And then you can get some good insights into how they view themselves and what they consider themselves to be especially good at.
And when you are listening to that, what is the real essence underneath that question? What is your superpower?
It's their own self-awareness,
Okay.
right? And knowing what makes them unique and what makes them especially qualified.
I want to skip a little bit here. AI is all the rage. I think it's going to be an incredible force in this. Is your company adopting AI? And if so, how do you see that over the next 3 years changing things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had a precise answer for you as far as how it's going to change. We are paying close attention to it. We're using it on a daily basis around using the LLMs, and Gemini and ChatGPT, et cetera, to like help us save time in presentations or doing research. Excuse me, things of that nature. I've also seen quite a few demos of software that where they're trying to use AI to help with accounting. Some of it is promising, but I think it's not yet fully baked on the accounting side. But we in our marketing automation and we recently implemented HubSpot, and we're looking into how we can greater leverage AI with some of our sales and marketing type things.
We got here, Dan, talking about why hiring right is everything. We didn't answer that question. So I'd love for you to go back and just say why hiring right is everything as you've scaled this business to where it is.
We're a professional services firm. We people are our product. And so if a bad hire is costly and harms our reputation, it harms the ecosystem, I think, to some extent. So hiring right is absolutely critical because it drives our success. It's if other types of companies, they can they can have maybe a person or two who's a non-performer, and they can it doesn't have the visibility. But in a professional services firm, it is who we are. It is how we present ourselves. It's how we show up in the world is our people. And so it's absolutely job one.
Do you have anything that would be considered like trial basis or an approach to hiring that might be a little bit unique for your type business?
Um, I think it's the thorough diligence we do on people, the testing we already mentioned, um, the sort of questions we ask when we're reference checking, I think, is also a big part of that. We try to drill deep, not just ask standard questions, but really try to go deeper into who the people are. We also actually there's one other thing that I think is interesting too is we have a particular sort of it's not Myers-Briggs, it's not DISC, it's sort of in the same realm. It's called the Core Values Index, and we have everybody take the CVI to help them understand how they would engage with clients. How do they orient themselves? What gives them energy? And so it ranks people across four categories of merchant, innovator, builder, and banker. And it helps us understand, it doesn't necessarily eliminate a candidate from a role, but it allows us to ask further questions about their approach to what gives them satisfaction and how they engage with clients.
I love assessment tests, and I've never heard of the CVI, Clear Value Index.
Core values, core
Core value,
values index.
core value. Okay. And why did you choose that platform?
It just resonated with me the first time I saw it. To understand what drives a person, what sort of motivates them, what they consider to be their core values. So I'll give one example. Like, so I'm a merchant innovator. So it ranks the top two scores are kind of how it describes you. So merchants get their energy from building trust, building relationships, and engaging with humans. Whereas innovators are strong problem solvers. So I love to see those two attributes in my CFOs. With my controllers and other accountants, I like to see a banker. That means that their desk is probably more organized than mine, and they get a lot of energy from things dying out and reconciliations working, and getting solving a problem that has a clear accurate outcome.
I I love the fact that you have these systems that you hire people. What is a mistake that you made in early hiring that you could just share back with us? Don't do this, avoid this.
Yeah, not asking the tough questions, not doing enough diligence on people, and realizing that they weren't cut out. We've had people who didn't last very long because once they realize that it's a different sort of environment than they may have been used to working as a for a single company, they didn't like the stress and sort of switching costs of switching from client A to client B to client C, and having to juggle that sort of responsibility around serving multiple companies. And so we that's why we spend a lot more time on that now, because it's not for everyone, and people have proven that it's not for them. So we want to know that ahead of time, right? We want to make sure that we go really deep on that, so we don't make that mistake again.
Now, Dan just said something about a mistake, about not asking the tough questions. Now, I think it's questions that he was meaning to, but I think it's also just really laying out there what this job entails. if you're really honest and transparent with your people, you should tell them not just the good things, but the bad and the ugly. The bad and the ugly of every job is there. It could be longer hours. It could be you're expected to make decisions without much data, or you could be expected to innovate, or you could be expected to, we had some customer service people that said you're expected to plug into your desk so that we can route calls to you. And they didn't like that, so they would quit after a few months. Now, I say this to you and use that one example because you want to tell people the real way the job works. And you want to do that before you hire them, because if it shies them away, you just have saved yourself some money and some heartache. But if they lean in and say, I appreciate hard, or this kind of hard, they're accepting that they're willing to do that. I find a lot of companies are afraid to do this. So if you combine what we talked about earlier is testing skills, and you actually tell them the good, the bad, and ugly of this position, you will have better candidates at the end, and they will stay longer. We've seen this happen over and over with data, and we share this with you because we want you to have the kind of company that's of your dreams, and it starts, and a very important element behind that is hiring right. So back to Dan. Let's wrap this up, Dan, with a quick view of your leadership principles. You've scaled up to 40 employees plus. What is the leadership principle that keeps you growing and keeps this company growing?
The one that comes to mind immediately is integrity. And integrity and communication. And maybe if I can pick two people that do what they say they're going to do. They don't sign up for things they can't, deliverables they can't meet on a timely basis. And so I think that's part of integrity. Communicating that is part of the integrity of meeting the expectations of what you sign up for.
Well, great place to end this. Dan, I appreciate you being here, being a guest on the podcast.
My pleasure, Gene. Great to meet you.
Wow, another great interview here on the podcast, helping you not just hire right, but really understand what the process is for hiring so that you can do this better than you're doing it today. If you think about your employees and you want to make sure that everyone is aligned together, it starts with hiring. So hopefully you got something out of today. If there's any way that I can help you or my team can help you, you want to check out the free training, go to training.coreelevation.com and you can tune in to that right away. It's absolutely free and gives you a chance to test your way into what's next for your company. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, be encouraged. We'll see you next time.